Greetings from EPG Pathshala. In this module, I am going to discuss about security planning. We will first see the need of security analysis. Then we will talk about what are the steps need to be followed while planning a security, who all should be the members, and then we will see how that security planning can be implemented. To start with the discussion, a security plan is a document that describes how an organization will address its security needs. So nowadays you all know that a company cannot survive without computers, because all data, all business may be passed through the internet, through email. So security planning is must. But once planned or once we have prepared a security plan, would it be for the infinite interval of time? No. The security plan needs to be periodically reviewed, and revision needs to be made as organization security needs change. A good security plan is an official record of current security practices. Plus, it adds a blueprint for orderly change to improve those practices. Who will be benefited from the security plan? If I talk about developers, they can measure the effect of proposed changes, and eventually they can suggest the further improvements. The same way users can also measure the effect of proposed changes. The security plan must be carefully written, and it should be supported by management, and management notifies employee that security is important to management. So if the company has defined a security plan, it has to have the appropriate content and it should produce the desired effect. Now the question is, if a company wants to make a security plan, or if you are a part of a company which needs to have a security plan, what should be the contents? A security plan identifies and organizes the security activities for a computing system. You all know a computer is secured either by IDS, intrusion detection system, or by firewall or any other mechanism. But only putting a firewall or only putting an IDS is sufficient? No. There should be certain rules and regulations also needs to be defined and identified. That is why I said the security plan identifies and organizes the security activities for a computing system. So every security plan must address 7 issues. The first is a policy, the second is current state, the third is requirements, 4 is recommended controls, 5th is accountability, 6th is timetable, and 7th is continuing attention. So policy is nothing but it indicates the goals of a computer security effort and the willingness of the people involved to work to achieve the goals. Current state describes the state of the security at the time of plan. Requirements suggest that what are the ways those should be recommended to meet the security goals. Recommended controls, they map the controls to the vulnerabilities identified in the policy and requirements. Accountability describes who is responsible for each security activity. Timetable is identifying when different security functions are to be done. Continuing attention says specify a structure for periodically updating the security plan. Once we have defined the issues which need to be addressed for the security plan, then there are questions: what are the approaches to create and update a security plan? Each company has its maintenance process defined. Okay, this would after 1 year these computers will go into the maintenance. The annual maintenance budget would be this. In such a way, a company can define its security plan as well. We already have seen the 7 parts which the security plan must address. Now we will see in the detail what would be there in each of the 7 issues. Let's start with policy. A security policy is nothing but a high-level statement that finds out what is the purpose and intent. Sometimes we feel that if I take a company X and company Y, they would define this, they would have the same policies. But policy is one of the most difficult section to write and to have a common policy for all companies. So if we want our policy to be strengthened, it involves cost, it involves inconvenience to the users. So we have to decide whether we want a stringent policy and possibly unpopular controls that prevent all security problems, or we just want simply mitigate the security breaches. When we write policy statement, they must answer the questions such as who should be allowed access, to what system and organizational resources should access be allowed, and what types of access should each user be allowed for each resource. So we are going to put a resource level access level for the users. If we are writing policy statements, there are certain suggestions. So first is the organization's goal on security. Maybe system protection of data from leakages to outsiders, protect against loss of data due to physical disaster, protect the data's integrity, or protect against loss of business. The second, it should specify where the responsibility for security lies. That means if a security is to be maintained by administrator, by some security group, or by each employee. Third is the organization's commitment to the security, that says who provides security support for staff, where does security fit into organization structure. We talked about policy. The second issue is current security status. So if we want to plan any security, we must be knowing about the vulnerabilities that a company or the organization must be exposed to. To determine vulnerabilities, we need to do the risk analysis. Risk analysis forms the basis for describing the current status of the security. The security threats to the assets and the controls in place to protect the assets need to be specified. When we are defining the status portion of the plan, it also defines the limits of responsibility for the security. When we talk about security, who is responsible for the current security status, we are also talking about which assets to be protected, and as I said, who is responsible for that. The third is requirements. For any security plan, the first thing is get a security requirements. It is a functional or performance demands, in which the requirements are usually derived from organizational needs. Sometimes these needs include the need to conform to specific security requirements imposed from outside. Who can be this outside or agency? It may be a government. So there is a constraint. Constraint is an aspect of the security policy that constrains, circumscribes or directs the implementation of the requirement. So to define a requirement, there should be a distinction that the requirements should explain what should be accomplished, not how they should be accomplished. So if we write down the requirement, rather than writing a requirement, certain data records should require passwords for access. A security planner should state only the access to the data record should be restricted. If we write the requirements in the flexible manner, the designers can have a choice how to put those access controls together. The next we want to talk about the recommended controls. Before I go to the recommended controls, there are certain requirements that should meet certain characteristics. So before I talk about recommended controls, let me put a point that what are those characteristics. So first says correctness. So the question need to be asked, are the requirements understandable? Consistency, whatever requirements we have, is there any conflict or ambiguity? Completeness, are all possible situations addressed by the requirements? For example, if we specify a requirement that the employee should be allowed to log in from the morning 9 to evening 5, then we need to check that whether we have addressed the situation, in which case there is some critical work to be done and employee has to log in at a morning time or at a late evening time. So those considerations should be made when we want to achieve completeness in a security plan. Realism, it says whatever requirements we have put up, it is possible to implement them. Then the need, are the requirements unnecessarily restrictive? Verifiability, it says, can test be written to demonstrate conclusively and objectively that the requirements have been met? Last is a traceability. Each requirement should be traced to the functions and data related to it, so that if there is any change in a requirement, that can lead to re-evaluation. Then there is something called recommended control. The security plan, then I am talking about the fourth issue, that is recommended controls. The security plan must also recommend what controls should be incorporated into the system to meet those requirements. The fifth issue which we wanted to address is responsibility for implementation. There is a section of the security plan that should identify which people are responsible for implementing the security requirements. So if we have documented that, it assists those who must coordinate their individual responsibilities with those of the other developers. At the same time, the plan must specify that who is accountable and should some requirement not be met or some vulnerability not be addressed. So what happens, sometimes we have listed certain security risk and accordingly the plan is made, but there occurs a zero-day attack, the attack which is not known, then, or the security breach which has occurred which is not discussed, then what action should be taken and who will take the action, that also should be specified in the responsibility for implementation. There are certain peoples, personal computer users, project leaders, managers, database administrators, information officers. So they all have a separate responsibility according to their job profile. One more to add to this list is personal staff members. They may be they may be responsible for security involving the employees. The next issue was timetable. The security plan should include a timetable that shows how and when the elements of the plan will be performed. These dates also give milestones so that management can track the progress of the implementation. The seventh issue is continuing attention. So good intentions are not enough when it comes to security. The inventory of the objects and the list of controls should periodically be scrutinized and updated. And risk analysis is performed. The security plan should set time frames, and after that time frame, it should be periodically reviewed. Who all can be the members of security planning team members? So once we have identified the issues, we have elaborated, now we will check who all can be the members. So there can be computer hardware group, system administrators, systems programmers, applications programmers, data entry personnel, physical security personnel, and representative users. Now we want to talk about assuring commitment to a security plan. What does it mean? It means that security functions will be implemented and security activities will be carried out. Once again, we will identify three groups of people. The first is the planning team. It must be sensitive to the needs of each group affected by the plan. The second is those affected by the security recommendations must understand what the plan means for the way they will use the system and perform their business activities. And third is management must be committed to using and enforcing the security aspects of the system. Next, we want to talk about business continuity plans. They are the documents which says how a business will continue to function during a computer security incident. For example, computer security incident may include stealing of the hard disk. So if somebody steals the hard disk, what actions should be taken place? An ordinary security plan, if we talk about, it covers only the computer security during normal times and deals with protecting a wide variety of vulnerabilities. But a security continuity plan only has two characteristics. One is catastrophic operations or situations and long duration. catastrophic situations in which all major part of a computing capability becomes unavailable suddenly. And long duration says outage is expected to last for so long that business will suffer. So next, how to assess this business impact? For that we have to check what are the essential assets and what could disrupt use of these assets. What are we doing by raising these questions? We are assessing the impact of a failure on your business. So we will ask what are the essential assets and what could disrupt use of these assets. Next they say develop a strategy. The continuity strategy investigates how the key assets can be safeguarded. So if we have a sensitive data, it can be safeguarded through a backup copy of data or redundant hardware or manual process to take a data from one storage to another storage. One more question is, if a company is running a call center, if a call center in London fails, they have to divert all calls to the call center in Japan. Next is develop a plan. When we are talking about business continuity plan, they specifies several important things. First is who is in charge when the incident occurs, what to do and who does it. Next we want to talk about incident response plan. An incident response plan tells the staff how to deal with a security incident. So when we are talking about an incident response plan, it should include or it should define what constitutes an incident, identify who is responsible for taking charge of the situation, and describe the plan of action. When we have an incident response plan, it is done in 3 phases. First is advanced planning, then triage and running the incident. The 4th phase is review. How does an advanced planning can be done? The advanced planning works best because people can think logically, unhurried and without pressure. Then there is a response team. The response team is set of people charged with responding to the incident. This response team may include director, lead technician and advisor. To develop policy and identify a response team, there are certain matters that need to be considered: legal issues, preserving evidence, records and public relations. That means legal issue says an incident has always legal ramification. One should decide whether to ask law enforcement to participate. So if we have to take criminal action, that would include a civil case. So there are chances that there are different law enforcement need to be involved. Then comes preserving evidence. So whatever evidence we have gathered need to be preserved in the sense of integrity. Then records, they should always be maintained. Public relation means whenever an incident occurs, the company's organization should speak with one voice. So one person would say something and other person would say something else would not be acceptable. Once the incident has been resolved, it will hold a review. So what review need to be taken is any security control action to be taken. Did an intruder compromise a system because security patches were not up to date? So there are certain review questions, those are asked. Or should there be a procedure to ensure that patches are applied when they become unavailable? Then the question is, did the incident response plan work? Did everyone know whom to notify? Did the team have needed resources? Was the response fast enough? What should be done differently next time? So incident response plan ensures that incidents are handled without delay, efficiently, and with minimum harm. Then once we have done the security planning, the planning is always related to the risk. Risk analysis is related to the risk, and a risk is nothing but a potential problem that a system or its user may experience. Risk exposure, what is a risk exposure? They quantify the effects of a risk by multiplying the risk impact by a risk probability. So what would be the risk impact and what would be the probability? That would give a risk exposure. There are three strategies that can be used to deal with the risk: avoid the risk, transfer the risk, and assuming the risk by accepting it. We need to check what are the nature of the risk. Steps of a risk analysis, that includes identify the assets, determine vulnerabilities, estimate likelihood of exploitation, compute expected annual loss, survey the applicable controls and their cost, and project the annual saving of control. So this is how a risk analysis is being done. So we need to put, when doing the risk analysis, we have to do all the steps in the detail. Risk analysis will help in preparation for creating a better security plan. So it improves the awareness, relate the security mission to management objectives, identify the assets, vulnerability and controls, improve basis for decisions, justify expenditures for security, and there are certain arguments that go against the risk analysis that include false sense of precision and confidence, hard to perform, immutability, lack of accuracy. Now, lack of accuracy is often cited as a deficiency of risk analysis. If we have not performed the risk analysis, we are not with a better security plan. And if we are not with a better security plan, in case of incident reporting, the work would not be done in a better way. So to summarize this module, I started discussion about what is the need of a security plan. So we checked 7 issues, those should be addressed, and then we saw who all are the affected people, or who are the people should be motivated to join the committee to prepare the security plan. And then I touched upon the risk, what is a risk, and I also touched upon the steps that need to be taken to perform the risk analysis. So once again, let me put emphatically, better the risk analysis, the best is the security plan, and now the usage has been so wide of the computer system, internet, and its related things. So there is a need of having a good security plan. Thank you.